the fighting game community has grown quite a bit over the last few years. With newcomers trying to get into competitive ranked matches online, I think it's super important that learning fighting game mechanics, getting used to them, and reacting appropriately, all of these things need to be done accordingly with the right opponents so you can actually grow and improve with time. So what do a lot of beginners usually do in their initial moments or during the time when they're not in online matches? A lot of them, unfortunately, put much of their time doing matches against a computer player thinking maybe it'll be less pressure and hopefully things will get easier somehow. The sad reality though is that the computer player is not a practical opponent in fighting games, especially if you plan to compete in online matches, or realistically, if you plan to compete in general. In other words, outside of beginners trying to learn the ropes, it is highly unlikely that the computer player is going to do anything to help you improve your skills. In fact, it makes a lot more sense for the AI to be used as a dummy or for test scenarios and get a handle of the game's overall mechanics. So why is it pointless in spending hours against a computer player? Well, for starters, its AI is designed to pretty much cheat. 3 reasons why. First of all, it is constantly reading your inputs. So human players obviously cannot do this. Number 2, it reacts unrealistically to your actions. So here we're talking about free will versus a programmed player. And number 3, it ignores a repetitive and otherwise expected behavior. So if we're up against an opponent, for example, that constantly keeps jumping in the air, we're obviously going to rely on anti-air tactics, or at least something to punish these jumps, whereas a computer player obviously ignores this completely. So due to these reasons alone, playing against a computer player for too long outside of learning opportunities has very little purpose. It becomes counterproductive, and you may even start to form bad habits that will probably work against you when you're playing against real human players. So in this video, I'm going to show you how computer players from different fighting games behave based on the type of AI. This includes Street Fighter V, Dragon Ball FighterZ, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Street Fighter V is a perfect example of how the computer player reads your inputs. You can see the craziness of how fast your moves get countered even at point blank range. The reason why this is so obvious is because moves get countered before you can even visually see where the opponent went wrong. The AI also does this on wake up. Also, the highest level CPU will make less efforts trying to jump or dodge fireballs safely, but will be completely okay getting chip damage from far away while blocking. For fighters, I've found that a higher level computer player is only good for practicing your blocking and overall defensive skills. The AI has an unusually high aggro since it mostly keeps attacking and almost never blocks, unless an attack is coming from super far away when there's a long enough and clear delay. Dragon Rush, however, was super easy to spam a lot of times, especially when the CPU player was idle. For some reason, the way it's programmed, it just seems to think the opponent is hardly ever going to use it, even when you use it back to back. In Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, higher level computer players tend to have near perfect shielding in terms of frames and are difficult to break. However, they tend to chase you a lot without considering the consequences with the way their AI is programmed. In my experience, I've found that regardless of the character you chose, the computer player countless times just could not deal with sudden dash attacks, even for level 9s. And for final smash moves, they just walked right where you needed them to be. In Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, the computer player on harder modes typically had a knack for playing defensively most of the time, unless you decided to either try and get close or do something that was punishable. But outside of responding to attacks, the AI did what it could do to create a sizable distance. So in general, you can decide for yourself whether some of these games do better or worse than others in terms of AI. But the takeaway here is that you shouldn't get brainwashed from spending too much time against a computer player. But if you're a beginner trying to improve, your time will be much better spent playing against real human players. Thanks for watching, and for more on fighting games, please consider subscribing to this channel.